Hello again. One of the most popular displays in Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum is to be refurbished, making way for some brand new exhibits. The Life Gallery in the museum's West Court will be revamped for the first time since it reopened almost 10 years ago. Well, it's causing much excitement behind the scenes, and as Alison McCallum reports, a new campaign launched today and is calling on members of the public to get involved.
It's a place much loved by Glaswegians and those from further afield. Now Glasgow Museums is hoping those who hold such affection for the Kelvingrove Art Gallery Museum will reach into their pockets to help give the West Wing a new lease of life. In October this year, maintenance work on the Spitfire will be carried out, and museum bosses see this as an opportunity to redesign the West Court. A fundraising campaign has now been launched to raise £10,000 towards the costs of the works.
To do a half-decent job of the gallery itself, we need £120,000. So some of that money is coming from our own budgets. There's been some support from the Friends of Glasgow Museums and also some support from the Patron Circle, who also support the museum service. But we're hoping that the public will give us £10,000 to enable that work to go ahead.
Charity group the Friends of Glasgow Museums have already donated £50,000 towards the project.
We feel that the redisplay of the West Court is a very important development. It's a very popular part of the museums to visit, very popular with families, with parents and children. And we feel that it's a good way of stimulating the children's interest in both natural history and the museums.
13-year-old Jake McGowan-Lowe has had a lifelong passion for conservation and has already had the acclaim of being one of the top 50 most influential conservation heroes in the UK. He visited the museum to lend his support to the campaign.
The Kelvingrove Museum is a great museum. I've been coming here for years, and it's a museum that's inspired children to get into nature, and it's one of the museums that sparked my interest, and I'm hoping that it will do so in the future.
For now, the animals and airplanes of the West Court remain star attractions ahead of their winter makeover. Alison McCallum, STV News.
Well, what's in store for Sir Roger, the Asian elephant that we saw in the piece there, and the other attractions in the West Court? Well, the man who can answer that is museum manager Neil Ballantyne, who's leading the West Court redisplay project. Also in the studio is Jake McGowan-Lowe, one of the UK's top 50 most influential conservationists. A pretty impressive accolade for a 13-year-old Jake. Welcome to you both. Thanks very much for joining me in the studio. Neil, coming to you first of all. What's going to happen to Sir Roger the elephant that we saw there and all the rest of the exhibits that are in the West Court at the moment?
Well, Sir Roger will not be retiring. He'll have a wee break for a few months, but he'll be back on display in the new revamped gallery. So basically, we need to close the gallery for about 3 months to do the work on the Spitfire and the redisplay. So in that time, we'll probably keep Sir Roger somewhere safe in the same area, but under a few wraps just to keep him nice and safe while the work goes on. And then he'll have pride of place in the new gallery when it reopens towards the start of next year.
So 3 months, that's quite a long time for all this work going on. Just how big, a project is it that you're taking on? How much work is involved?
It's quite a big project. I mean, every year in Kelvingrove we try and redo one of the galleries just to keep things new and fresh for people to come and see over and over again. The West Court is probably one of the biggest jobs we've taken on, though, partly because of the size of the gallery and partly because of the added complexity of having the Spitfire. Part of the Spitfire really is the catalyst for this project getting going. We have to get it down onto the ground. So that involves taking out about a quarter of the gallery just to physically get it on the ground. We have to do quite a bit of health and safety checks on the cables and shackles. And then we need to get it back up in the air again. And then we can start the task of actually putting in the new gallery. So our curators and researchers have been working away for some months now already, came up with the new storylines. They've been talking to the public and asking what they're interested in, what they'd like to find out. So all that work's been going on in the background. But the actual start of the process will be at the beginning of October, when we'll close the gallery to the public and start dismantling some of those objects. But people will be able to come along to the first floor of the gallery and look down and see what's going on. So we think, although the gallery itself will be closed, people can see what's happening, and they might find it quite interesting to see some of the work that normally goes on behind the scenes.
Exactly. So people will still be able to see this work going on and might even be able to see this massive Spitfire being taken down from the ceiling.
The actual day we drop the Spitfire, or lower it carefully, I should say, we might close the doors then, because the team that are doing it really need to concentrate so that it comes down evenly. If it starts going off kilter, then it might cause a few problems. So that might be the one day that we won't allow the public in. We might allow some of the media in, but probably not the public on that particular day. But the rest of the time, during the period of the closure, the people can look down, they'll see the Spitfire on the ground, they'll see the work that's going on around it, and then they'll see the new exhibits going in. And we're hoping to do a sort of stop animation film so that people can see that speeded up to see all the activity that takes place that's involved in a new gallery redisplay.
Talk to us a little bit about the funding as well. We heard in Alison's piece, it's costing a lot of money, but you're also looking to ask the public for £10,000 you want to raise. Tell us, why you're having to do that.
Well, the piece already, we've highlighted, we have received some funding already. So some of the money comes from Kelvin Grove's own budget. We're getting a really generous donation from the Friends of Glasgow Museums, and the Patron Circle have also contributed. We're asking the public for £10,000 for the simple reason that we don't have enough money to do the job properly. The more money we can raise, the more exhibits we can put in, and to be honest with you, the more modern the displays we can put in, the more computer interactives we can have, and the more it's really expensive to get film or footage of animals. You have to pay the licence and so on, so it is quite an expensive process, and even just getting new specimens conserved and mounted is really expensive.
Now, Jake, you've been a bone collector, I believe, since you've been 6 years old. What do you make of the museum? I bet you've spent quite a lot of time there over the years.
Yeah, I think I first visited the museum when I was about 6 years old. And even back then, I can remember seeing Sir Roger the elephant for the first time.
So why did you become a bone collector? I believe you've got a massive collection. Talk to us a little bit about what kind of bones you've got and why you decided to start collecting them in the first place.
I've got a very wide variation of bones, from small rabbit skulls to a leopard skull. But I started collecting bones when I was 6 years old, when I was out walking on the hills with Dad, and I came across a skull. I didn't know what it was, so I took it home and found out it was from a rabbit, and that kind of sparked my interest.
And you've now gone on to write a blog, you've just written a book. Why are you so interested in it? What's kept you going all these years?
Because bones are all interesting, because no one is the same, because they're all unique and they both tell two stories. One of how that individual animal lived its life, and another of how that species of animal has evolved over millions of years.
So how important do you think places like Kelvin Grove Museum are? Have you learned a lot from going to the museum?
Well, there's been thousands of kids inspired from the Kelvin Grove's displays, and I know I was one of them, and I hope that the improvements to the museum will help that in the future.
And just coming to you, Neil, finally, what would you say to people, to get the money in, to raise that £10,000? Why would you encourage them that, this is an important, donation or money to raise?
I would say that the West Court is particularly important because that's where the majority of young visitors go. It's the animals that really brings in young children to the museum, and once they're in, hopefully they'll have a good time, and that will inspire them to come back again throughout their lives.
Well, thank you so much, the two of you, for coming in. We'll be keeping our eyes peeled for the West Court reopening in a few months' time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, tomorrow on STV Glasgow News at 10, challenging poverty. With a huge rise in the number of Scots using food banks, we talk to Glasgow Central MSP MP Alison Thewlis, who's urging for an urgent review into the 323% increase in requests for food parcels. We'll also be hearing from the North West Food Bank, who see the struggles that people face on a daily basis. Now, don't forget, if it's happening in Glasgow, you'll find it on the STV Glasgow app. And today, thousands of beer lovers are celebrating the return of Glasgow's Oktoberfest. The event, which champions the German culture, has been confirmed for its third year. So if you're partial to a traditional beer and sausage-fueled knees up, then head to the app for the details. Don't forget that you can contact us here at STV News on the STV Glasgow channel. If there's a story you think we should know about or an issue in your community, get in touch with our reporters by email, Facebook or Twitter. And that's it for the moment. From all of us here in the STV Glasgow News team, enjoy the rest of your evening. Goodbye for now.